We're here today to talk about real estate.
Y'all, welcome back to the Real Estate Unlimited podcast. My name is Serhant.
Brian Schubert.
I'm Carrie Steele.
I'm unfortunately Bill Jones.
And we're the Jones Home Team.
This is episode 36. I don't know what that was, but we'll roll with it. So we're back. We figured out it was quite a bit, I don't know, big percentage of the year. We're getting on 70% of the year at this point, putting this together. So we'll keep doing it. I don't know if that will continue, but we'll try maybe. We want the British one. We want the British one, so work on that a little bit. I don't have voices. I don't know if you guys do. Carrie, you got some good ones.
I do a great impression of a hot dog.
Oh, jeez. So you have to watch for that. If you're listening, you got to watch. All right. Well, we're obviously a little fired up here today. I'm all kinds of mad about commission discussions, things like that. Brian's going to kind of lead right back into that. Carrie, we were talking waterfront properties and things like that. Yep. And Sierra,
home hacks of the week.
Home hacks. All right, perfect. So we'll get into commission stuff, and I got kind of a fun one at the end if we have time. I know we kind of have a little bit of a constraint, but we've talked about this several times, getting into commission. So yesterday I spoke at a local investor group, and these guys who buy and sell real estate still just have a lot of questions about how our commission structure works, like the buyer agency things. I've had agents in our office, a lot of other agents from other offices still. Seems like, I guess, catch everybody up, back to August 17th of last year. The rules changed for us real estate agents. We used to charge a certain percentage, and we'd cut that up and offer that to a buyer's agent, every other brokerage in the world. That world no longer exists. Michael Ketchmark, attorney, filed a big class action lawsuit. He walked away with like $1 billion or something like that. You know, the home sellers didn't walk away with a whole lot, but it changed our entire industry. So even these, savvy investors locally, they still don't really understand how this works. So I know most consumers only buy 1 or 2 homes a year, 1 or 2 homes ever. Definitely don't seem to know how this works, and even other agents. So I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts and discussion, and just more of as informative, like how are we handling that? How do we see other people handling those commissions? So the question I just had from another agent was, how are you describing, the real estate commission? So I get a buyer for your property. How are you? What's your seller offering is a question. So get this quite a bit then. It used to be we'd put that in the MLS. We're going to offer X percentage as a buyer commission. That's gone now. So now we have to navigate the world of what it is now. So the way I handle it, I have kind of just a canned statement. The seller will entertain any and all offers. If you have a buyer commission or agreement, go ahead and submit that in with your offer, and we'll present that to the seller and see where that comes out. Well, apparently that's not what a lot of agents want to hear. They want to know the number. What's the number? So several discussions I've had with other people would have been, my argument to offering a commission. Well, the thought is a lot of these other agents are saying we're still offering 2%, 2.5%. And it doesn't matter. The number doesn't matter. We're not trying to say what it should be. Could be,
because I get texts all the time. And as soon as I put a showing request in and it gets approved, the agent will literally text me and say, buyer's offering, seller's offering 2.4% or whatever it is.
Right.
And that's one of those, again, just because the seller's offering that, I may have a buyer's agency agreement of 3% or 2.5%.
Or less. And then you're putting your client, they're putting their client in a less position because now they've just taken money and thrown it away when they could have negotiated that better. Yep. So I feel like just a blanket statement of they are offering one.
Buyer, again, I guess part of that lawsuit was we're not supposed to be able to go back and edit or change our exclusive buyer or, our non-exclusive or exclusive buyer agency agreement. But again, if they're like, hey, the seller's offering 2.4%, but again, I guess you would know that with any future clients as well. So even if it doesn't work out with that particular client, if you would show that home to somebody else and you're like, well, hey, I know they're offering 2.4%. Let's I'm going to
2.4 or
the new client. Hey, look, I'm looking for 2.5% or 2.4%. Now that you now know that, when maybe you were only going to put 2% on your buyer agency agreement.
Right. So, and that was the discussion last night again, and me with these other agents and too. So the way we handle that, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, and I'll show you here then too. So I was going to show too, you go to TikTok, how does an agent effectively communicate what the commission should be? And there's all kinds of experts on here from all over the world. Everybody has, this is the only way to do it. I listened to a bunch of these, this is how it is. This is the way the world is. And it's a million different opinions. So
Yeah.
nobody knows what the actual right answer is or what it should be. I guess we can only navigate it as best we can. So the reason I give that kind of canned statement is it puts everybody, I think, kind of in the best position. So the seller's not, to your point, Brian, giving away any information they don't have to. So if we're not
paying more than they
need to.
more.
So they're not preemptively saying, I'll pay whatever the number is, 1, 2, 3, 8%. I'm just throwing numbers out there just because we're not trying to establish anything with what it is. If they're not establishing that puts them in a better position. So from the buyer side, they can negotiate that with their buyer's agent. Kind of the whole reason this whole thing has happened, and we now have this buyer agency agreement or this buyer representation agreement. You and your buyer agent sit down and discuss what's this going to look like, who's doing what for who, what's the commission rate's going to be, what's the payment going to look like, the time frame, all of that. So that's a discussion you have with your buyer's agent, and that could be more or less, again, to your point, like it might be higher or lower. So that puts that buyer in a better position. And then the agents, it gives us cover then too. We're not pre-establishing what those commissions need to be with the seller or even with the buyer. It's all negotiable. That's the big thing. You go to old Michael Ketchmark, Mr. Super Attorney here. Now, I actually looked a lot into this guy here. He's like a superstar attorney then. He win a couple $1 billion lawsuits. He can do all kind of stuff then. But I've listened to several podcasts with him on there, and that's the thing. He wants it all to be negotiable, nothing to be predetermined, nothing to be preset. So that, to me, puts everybody in the best light. But I think a lot of agents just want to go back to this is how it used to be. How do we work around that? And I've seen the silly videos too. I couldn't find any right now. I'm at my new listing, blah, 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 whatever. And I'm watching the Three Amigos, so I'm offering 3%, or I'm going to eat, 2.5 cookies on this property, or just doing all this cutesy stuff about, not saying what we're offering on a commission, but still kind of saying that. So I'm just trying to protect us, our clients, all our agents from what a future lawsuit would look like, because I feel like that's going to be around the corner. But then the argument turns into, well, I still don't know how to present this to a buyer.
Yes, they're offering a broker commission. Submit it with your offer. That's
right.
If you're on the list side. And
Sure.
if you're on the buy side, then you put in your 3%. And if they kick it back with whatever the difference is, then you have that conversation with your client. Hey, either you're going to eat the difference of the 0.5%. Either I'm going to cut my commission, which nobody wants to do, or we can write that into the offer if your bank's willing to, and you have that, wiggle room to write that with the offer. So if you're at $100,000, maybe you're at $100,250 or whatever the difference is.
So that just depends. And then the question then too, I got these little funny slides I found here. So, so who's paying it? Like, who's actually paying the commission? I think you kind of touched on it, Carrie, to where it's all negotiable. You put it in the offer. Sometimes it's paid by the seller. Sometimes it's not.
And maybe the buyer can't pay it. That's when whether or not your buyer can pay it when you're having those first conversations. Like if they don't have a problem with it at all and they're, ready, willing, and able to pay at closing, then great. But if they're in a position where they can barely get their closing costs together, you say, look, I got your back. We're going to get through this and we'll figure out a way to get you there.
Sure. So then the other side of it was, how do we as an agent effectively communicate that to a buyer client then? So the buyer client, I don't know that I want to agree to sign this. When we talked about the different types of forms, the exclusive, the non-exclusive, the things like that. And my, I guess, argument would be that I feel like a buyer is probably better served now, because now that we have a commitment between agents, so we know we've got a written agreement with the person, we can spend a lot more time, money, and energy trying to find them a home, because previous to that, and a client could just go buy whatever with whomever. It doesn't matter. There's no commitment anyway. So I feel like this puts everybody in a better position having that document in place.
Upfront conversation.
Yeah, upfront conversation, who's getting paid, how they're getting paid, who's doing what. I can now work with maybe fewer buyer clients, knowing, at the end of the day, I should hopefully get paid by working from them. I can put a lot more effort into doing that. So... And
that's one of those, I know, Bill, we kind of talked yesterday as far as, how you should handle that with a new buyer or a buyer. And that's one of those, like I kind of said how I do it,
kind of walk through your script then. So I'm a buyer.
Well, I guess on the first typical showing, if it's a brand new buyer that I've never met before, you say, hey, look, let's do a non-exclusive. This is just for this particular house. If, you feel like this relationship between us is going to work good, and I feel like it's going to work good, let's, further, I guess, look into that and do an exclusive buyer buyer's agreement, and we can, say, hey, we're going to work together to find, what your next home is. But if, after that first showing, either you or the buyer don't feel like it's a good relationship, I mean, maybe at that point you guys can move on or go your different ways, and they can go look for another agent or that better suits or, has a better relationship with them then.
Mm-hmm. And then also one of those first conversations that I have with them, especially if they're brand new to it and they don't know about the buyer's agreement, is that, look, if it's not me, every other agent's going to do this too. So,
or they should be.
If you call another realtor, they're all supposed to be doing this. So if you don't sign the consumer guide in the buyer's agreement with me, the next agent's supposed to prepare you for that as well. So at that point, they kind of get like, oh, okay, it's not just you and your paperwork with
not your crazy office or your crazy rules or something.
Correct. Yeah. If it's not me, it's somebody else is going to present this to you as well.
And I usually try to say too, especially if they're wary about signing away, saying that they'll just pay you 2.5 or whatever it is, to tell them like 99% of the time it's not going to come out of their pocket. Right. And if it were to have to come out of their pocket, we would know before they were going to put an offer in on a home.
And if you're a good agent, and nobody wants to work for free, but if you're a good agent and you see that red flag coming, you will navigate the waters before it gets to that. And nobody's going to keep their buyer from getting a house. Right. I mean, nobody wants to cut their commission. Nobody wants to work for free, but you'll do everything you can to get them, to the closing, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, not to get too hung up on the percentages or numbers. It's not like we're just worried about us, but like at the end of the day, we're doing this as a living.
And I tell them that at that first meeting, I'm no longer afraid, because before it was just so like, okay, I need to get. And I'm up front. I'm like, look, I just like you would pay a lawyer, a doctor, whoever. Like, I need to be paid too, and I will do everything I can for you. But this is how I get paid at the end of the day, and it's not me getting paid; it's my brokerage, and my brokerage pays me, and I'm clear about that too. Right. That this money goes to the brokerage. So.
Yeah, I got the brokerage, I got the tax man, I got everything else, all the expenses, driving around, all the time and energy to do that. So,
and I've never really had to dive that deep into, my commissions and where it goes or anything like that, but just letting them know how that works. Sure. How that money goes, where it comes from, who gets it, who pays me, and that. And I'm pretty upfront about that when I'm doing the buyer agreement with them. Right.
Because I think previous to that, I talked about this last night too. I don't know if you guys have ever had this experience. You're sitting at the closing table, and the person buying the house you represented for a year and a half to finally got them in a house, and they're just like, "Are you getting?
I want to make sure you get paid.
Are you going to get paid? I guess I never really thought about it. Are you getting paid? You getting taken care of? Like, this listing agent split the commission. Oh, okay. I just didn't know how that works. So again, I guess all of our faults as agents for not clearly laying out. I usually had that discussion, or at least kind of threw that out there, but whether it registered with anybody or not, they don't care. They just want to get in the house. They don't.
I mean, there was a...
Yeah, you're standing at the house. They don't care what you're saying. They just want to look around.
They just want the house.
My wife is desperate to get in this house. I don't give a crap what you're telling me. Just open the door. So
there was such a negative stigma about it, though, like buyer's agents getting paid before. Now I think it's like buyer's agents do a lot of work, and it's sometimes 10 times more work than the listing agent.
Sure.
Sometimes. Not always,
but for sure. I mean, it's a lot of work. So, and it is nice to where it's not all predetermined out. It's all negotiable. It's all out there. So yeah, I think that eliminates a lot of the buyer not having any clue on how you got paid as an agent. So now it's all spelled out. It's all right there. So then on the listing side, I could just beat this to death. I'm not going to try to do that. But then one of the conversations was had then too, are you talking to your seller about that? And the answer is yes. I charge X percentage to list your home.
That's right.
But we're going to open that up. We're going to advertise it to the world. MLS, Realtor.com, Zillow, all the places. We're going to encourage other buyers to come with their agent then too. So it's not going to be just me or my brokerage selling the home. We're going to, like we did traditionally, just so you know, a buyer is going to have an agreement with their buyer agent. They're likely going to include that percentage, whatever it is, into their offer and ask for you, the seller, to probably pay for it. I don't know about the world in large, but that's the world we live in around here. Right. It's just kind of that almost traditional kind of a picture. Then, but who's paying for it? We'll kind of come back to that. But you have that discussion with the seller, and then you say it could be this. It could be anything. It could be all over the place. But we'll see what that is. So from a seller standpoint, again, I don't know that they want to offer a certain percentage because, like you were saying earlier, maybe that just becomes common knowledge and we know that property is offering X percentage. I get a new buyer. Well, I was normally going to charge the X, but now I'm going to charge Y because I know that property is offering that. So that conversation, I feel, should be had with the seller. All those costs that they're going to run into. But again, do they listen to all that at the time? We go through our whole list. We go through our listing agreement and kind of run that through there. So I feel like it's good because it's created a lot of new discussions maybe not new, but it's really putting it on the forefront of like, this is how it all works. This is how everybody's getting paid. But going back to like you're saying here, like who pays for it ultimately? Is the seller paying for it? Is the buyer paying for it?
It's giving everybody negotiating power, which is real estate.
Right.
I mean, real estate is negotiating. You know, that's one of the big parts of our jobs as agents is to advocate for our client, be it buyer or seller. So if we no longer are locked into a certain number that even was negotiable before, but is now
that's
clearly
key. Yeah, it was always negotiable.
It was always negotiable, but now that it's clearly negotiable, I think it gives everybody the power to work best for their client, be it buyer or seller.
Right. And then again, goes to the like who's paying for it. That's kind of the chicken or the egg question with real estate then too. Mm-hmm. Is the seller paying for it? Well, the deal never happens unless the buyer's bringing the money.
Sure.
Then too. So
I was gonna say if you pull up that graph that I had on there too, that kind of goes into that a little bit as well.
Is it who's actually paying for it then too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at you, your overachieving self. That's a pretty sexy chart there.
So, yeah, just a graph the National Association of Realtors put together just as far as how a real estate agent was compensated. So, obviously, as you can kind of see, it goes through by age of home buyers and who typically pays that. Just some kind of quick points that I was able to pull out of there. So across all age groups, the most common method of compensation is that the seller pays the agent. And that's 52% of buyers. So they asked the clients were the ones that reported that. 52% of buyers reported that the seller was the one that was ultimately responsible for paying it.
I feel like that's low.
I do
feel like
too.
that's
That's
low too.
way low.
Again, this maybe out in California or New York, it's more.
Well, I just looked at the chart for the first time. So the don't know 19%. They didn't know. I bet it was the seller paying for it probably. So you probably, I'm sure, add that onto there.
So again, when you're dealing with $50 million homes or $500,000, I guess more expensive homes, it's probably if you're spending $50 million, you probably have enough money to pay your
pay the
buyer's
commission
agent.
or whatever. Yeah.
So again, I guess it just depends on your area, but I would say around here it's significantly higher than that the seller pay for it. The likelihood of the buyer alone paying the agent increases with age. So the older you are, the more likely you are to be able to afford to pay your buyer agent.
Have a little nest egg or you're selling a house.
You've been working your entire life. You have probably a little bit of money saved up, so you can kind of afford to pay your own agent at that point in time.
That's interesting. But yeah, I bet that's skewed. Because, around here, it's the majority of the time, it's technically a seller expense. Even if it's... Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Ladies first.
Probably new first-time home buyers versus people that are selling, because then they've got that money from, assuming they have money from their second home sale.
Previous sale then.
Yep.
Yeah,
because, again, kind of like what you pointed out, Bill, younger buyers are less certain about how their agent was paid. So the younger buyers, they just... wrote their offer and wanted the house. They didn't know the back end of how things.
They've got a lot of other things they're worried about. Not how.
I don't even have a refrigerator. Like, how am I like?
What is a loan?
I don't even have a refrigerator.
How do I make this work? I need ketchup. So yeah, it just makes it tough to, I guess, to really parse that out even more then, because again, going back to the seller standpoint, a seller might say, I want as much money as I can get for my home, rightfully so. It's probably the biggest asset I own. I don't want all these additional expenses and things like that. So sure, I'll hire you, Carrie, to be my listing agent, but I don't want to pay a buyer agent jack. Okay, so just so we understand, a buyer working with a buyer's agent, they're going to submit an offer. If they know they're not going to get that into the deal, their offer is probably going to be less than too. So it all just goes to what the net dollar is at the end of the day. If the seller's happy with, if they're like, Bill, get me a whatever number is $200,000 and I'm just pleased as punch that I'll walk away from this deal at that, then I'm happy. So what does it matter what the closing costs or the commission or who's paying what or whatever? If you're walking away with your $200,000,
that's why you need a good agent to tell you that stuff, because that's some of that hidden stuff that if you're not well versed in, or you're not educated, or you don't describe it to your client, that could cost them a lot of money.
Right.
Thousands.
Yeah. So I don't know. Again, we could just keep beating that all over the place.
That's a good topic. It's a really good topic.
And it's just, even still, I really want to see the data come August 17th. I want to look at all the data from where things have actually been. And this whole lawsuit was supposed to save people money. And we'll talk about this later. I really don't think it's saving anybody anything. If anything,
I just had one that came in at 3%, and that was more than what the seller was offering. But the bottom dollar was more. Yeah. But it did cost them more money. But they ended up I guess
a lot
that's a double,
of times,
you know what I mean?
we can look at for sure the numbers within our brokerage, and I just so far I think it's been trending up, not down. Then, so I don't think it's saving anybody anything, but it's a much clearer conversation with everybody, buyers and sellers both. I think they all know. Obviously, they're comfortable with how the deal come to an end. They ended up selling, buyer ended up buying. So
that transparency.
Yep. All right. Good graph, Brian. I like that. So I don't think it's right, but it's a nice graph.
Hey,
we don't know
You
yet.
can argue with the National Association.
I was going to say, we don't know. We don't know. We'll have a whole year to really predetermine, and then they'll hopefully be able to break it down by area or state or something. A little better when they've got more.
See what that looks like then too. Oh, so I just real quick on this. So if I'm just Bob and Betty home buyer, I'm going to go to the old interwebs here and find me some answers. So you go onto TikTok and there's a million agents that are all, just the best agent in their market, and they know everything. They're going to tell you how it all works. Chat GPT, hey, find me some videos on how this works. So again, just endless amounts of people talking about what it should look like, what buyers should be aware of, what sellers should be aware of, things like that. So it's different, I'm sure, in every market. I'm sure every area is kind of different, but I don't know that the world really changed. I don't know if the costs have changed much. I don't know that the way it happens changed a whole lot other than just the paperwork and more conversation. So so where do you get the answers? I don't know. Listen to us, great. If you don't, you don't. But I mean, that's our little world we live in. That's how we're operating. So yeah, any of the agents out there, for the most part, my recommendation would be to present it like that. You have a listing, you tell any agent that calls that, the seller's willing to entertain any and all offers. Just please submit anything you have with your offer then. So if you got a buyer agent commission, go ahead and include that in your offer, and we'll consider it from there. The seller's going to do what's best for them. Your client's going to do what's best for them, and we'll figure it out. So you're not getting a percentage out of me. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, that's what I feel like it should be. But I guess you do what you feel is right, what your broker's instructing you to do then. So, all right, I'll quit. I'll get off my high horse. What do we got next?
Okay, let's do some home hacks of the week. These are just
you have to talk in a hillbilly accent, though.
No,
let's do some home hacks of the week,
y'all. I shouldn't say hillbilly. I should say super southern accent.
You can serve up supper in the best way in your home that you just love so much.
Oh my Lord,
right,
I love
honey?
it. Home hacks.
I got a few on here.
I'm gonna see what Google comes up with too. See if it matches with your list.
Okay. These are just some little tips and tricks if you are wanting to maybe just add some refresh to your home, a little bit of life, something like that.
So we're talking remodels or kind of fixes, or what are we hacking?
Tiny remodel, like
okay,
tiny little
like
renovation things.
Weekend.
Yes, like 1 day max maybe. Super quick, just with certain spaces, trying to maximize your space and what you can do with it if you've got a smaller space. Little tip for you, add a big mirror.
Yeah, it makes it look bigger.
Yeah, narrow hallways, small bathroom, stuff like that. If you got a narrow hallway, you can add a long mirror like that, or even one along the side too. Something like that gives it a larger, brighter appearance in those tricky spots where you don't really have many decorating options. Another one, DIY grout refresh. Personally, not my favorite thing to have to do, but usually if you're thinking about it, it probably needs it. So you can kind of use any kind of like lightning mixture, like baking soda, hydrogen peroxide mix, and then they also make like the grout pins that you can use to just give it a cheap little facelift, a little bit more just elbow grease on that one. But like I said, if you're thinking about it, it probably needs it. Doorknobs and hardware. I think both are important. I feel like we've talked about updating hardware and stuff on cabinets before, but doorknobs too. If you've got outdated doorknobs or just ones that are just very basic, simple, kind of if you can find a way to kind of match your hardware a little bit, or just match it to a style that's similar to what you actually prefer, even if it's not something that everyone may like. If you like it better, then who cares?
You're the one living in the house. Yeah, you should be the one liking it.
Yeah, just a simple little switch like that is just something that can really elevate your space and how you feel about it too. I think that's really important. And then just one last one real quick, swapping out your light bulbs, your bright white interrogation room lighting.
Interrogation room.
But we tell people too when they're selling their house to do that because it makes a huge difference.
Helps with photos
and natural light.
Yep.
So what was it? Soft lighting?
Like soft, like the Edison bulbs are a good one.
and making sure.
Now, wait a minute.
Now,
Previously, you told me those are out of style.
Those are good for. Those are good for.
I'm pretty sure you
seasons.
did.
I think those Edison bulbs and the lighter, warmer light is really good for the fall and Christmas and that warm feeling when you want to cozy around the fireplace. And then otherwise, those bright, which is kind of contradictory because you would think you'd need more light because it's darker. Anyway, the bright lights are great for selling the house because it really highlights everything and is better for photos.
Yeah.
And making sure the lights match as well.
Oh my God. Or make sure you actually have light bulbs in the sockets.
Light bulbs.
And they
Even
work.
if the lights is not modern, if you put all brand new light bulbs in there, it changes the illusion that you spent money on a new fixture, even though it's just bright new bulbs.
Right.
Which is costly, but it's worth it.
I hate that more than anything. You're trying to sell a house and you go into the ceiling fan and it's like 3 different bulbs. 2 of them don't
missing,
work.
Yeah,
the one's broke.
Got a hard wobble.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's another one too, and maybe it's just something that's like kind of been bothering you for a while, but you don't want to get out the ladder and change the bulbs out so they all match or whatever.
Oh, I found we have found a house hack that works with that then too. Utilizing old sneakers.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. We could have used that when we were doing our windows outside.
Right, protect your house. Duct tape, old sneakers. So when I'm searching house hack, that's what pops up.
Safety of that though.
We're not worried about safety here, Carrie. We're worried about damaging the house.
Well, we'll find out. Bill will do that next time he has to change the light bulb.
Yeah,
that's fair.
We'll see what happens. So
Re-up on the road.
It's funny.
Oh man.
Re-up on the road.
Do a live.
Yeah,
video.
We're still due for one of those
on location.
on location.
So yeah, that's my home hacks for the week.
Okay.
Home hacks for the week, y'all.
I like it. Do we have more time? I'm just in a griping mood here today. So cut me off when we need to stop here. Ryan Serhant going after Compass now. So here's the other thing. Now we're going back to August 17th, whole rule change. Now it's the more recent rule change with NAR with the clear cooperation. We talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago. I don't even know. And this will still be a big topic for a while. It's kind of war between Zillow, Homes.com, Redfin, Compass, all the EXP, a lot of these different big brokerages. RE/MAX hasn't said anything as far as I'm aware. I don't think ERA, Century 21, any of them have really ruled in on this. But so it used to be the listing would go on the market. You have 24 hours to get it into the MLS. Now they have all these private listings, all these things like that. Well, now Compass came out. Now I'm not trying to bash on Compass. They're just kind of the front runner on this whole thing. Now they've got the book. They're coming up. They're bringing the book back.
Bringing it back.
Yeah. So Ryan Serhant says, "What are they? Barnes and Noble? Like what's going on here? What are they doing with the books here?" So now they're going to have in the office a book that they're going to update weekly with all their private off-market listings.
Weekly.
Yeah,
What the hell is the point?
well, because
It's
Sierra,
print.
you can get the book and see our exclusive listings now.
I don't like the look of that because then that's like, hey, houses are going to stay on the market longer than 30, 60, 90 days because they're putting them in print. So
Right.
we're going backwards.
Well, they still have their internal, more updated
Exactly.
thing.
That's
Sure.
like there's no way they're just getting rid of their online MLS like that.
Well, no, but for this type, it's their, what do they call it? Their Compass exclusive.
Exclusive.
Or their,
So like higher end.
So it's going to be only marketed within their office.
Right.
They can't advertise it in the MLS. They cannot send it to multiple brokerages because then that violates the clear cooperation rule. So they would be in violation of that if they advertise it to multiple offices. That doesn't mean that you couldn't go sell that listing, but I don't know if you need to go, hey, Compass, I need to see that book.
Right.
Every time, once a week, we're going to all walk in there on Monday and say, well, we want to see the updated book. Can I check that out like a library? I don't know how this.
There's no
this
MLS
works.
data sheet.
Yeah,
so where are you getting the? It's not on Zillow. You can't Google it.
I don't know. You call them and say, hey, do you guys have any, Compass exclusive listings? And I think there's going to be more than them. It was EXP or Redfin. One of them was on their side. One of them was against them. Zillow, again, has said that if it does one of these exclusives, it will never be on Zillow. So while it's listed with that brokerage, it will never end up on Zillow. Now, Homes.com is firing at Zillow now, big competitor, saying, okay, well, we not only will advertise it, we're going to boost it. So if you have these Compass exclusives and Zillow won't allow it on there, now Homes.com is going to boost
is insane.
this.
Is anybody else
ridiculous.
completely
confused? This sounds like a bunch of children fighting.
Yes.
over
It is.
something.
It
It's
really
insanity.
is.
So
it's
only getting
power
worse.
and
Every week it's
control.
getting worse. That's what it is. So now Howard Hanna, Hobie Hanna, I think is the guy that's running that now too. This is my excitement, I guess. I ride the lawnmower and listen to these fools all talk about this stuff then too. I heard so much. So now Hobie Hanna's come out and said, okay, Zillow, we'll make a deal with you. We're going to side basically with Compass and say, we're gonna have our own private market listings and things like that. We may give it to Zillow to use, like, so now we're going to be kind to Zillow. We're going to give you this listing, but the deal is any leads you generate off of this or whatever, you're going to send back to us then.
As it should be.
You're not going to make money.
It should be.
So that now we're at war again about Zillow's entire
platform.
Their whole platform. Yeah. That's how they make money. That's how Realtor.com, Zillow, all these places make money is they take our MLS data,
and make money off of our work.
Yes, and
like
then
essentially
sell it back to us agents then as
which
leads.
Which is wild. I guess it should be straightened out because I've never understood that
right.
They're taking our work and profiting from it and then charging us for the work that we did initially anyway. Like,
sure.
Are you guys on board with? Do you understand that?
Another podcast, Byron Lazine, he talks about this. We lost. We as brokerages lost that fight a decade ago.
Right.
Like, it's just the user experience. People would rather go on Zillow, Realtor.com,
it's beneficial
Homes.com.
for the client.
If we've got a good website, but even if I'm looking up a listing real quick, a lot of times I'm just
not in our MLS.
Yeah, I'll just jump into to Zillow, Realtor.com real quick to kind of look it up. So we as brokers lost that fight 10 years ago.
Yep.
So we all have cried about it ever since, but I mean, it's a world we live in. So now, to your points here, it's just like a bunch of kids fighting about, well, no, I want it this way. I want it that way. I want to be able to do this. And, I want my cake and eat it too. So
like if it's not broke, don't fix it.
But how do you bite the hand that feeds you also? Because there is access to stuff that we wouldn't have access to otherwise. You hate to say that, but there is not one universal MLS. So that's how Zillow and Homes.com and Realtor and all them are trying to kind of bridge that gap.
That's a great point. If there were like a national or an Ohio MLS that went over everything, then that would probably fix a lot of this. But again, it's not there. A whole nother fight. The different MLSs all kind of having their own little territory, and they don't want to give up the power and control of what that turns into because they get to charge us fees for each thing, and it's just a hot mess. So what's that mean to the consumer? I don't know. Like,
stay with us. Keep searching, keep Googling, call your agent.
Yeah. I think it goes back to find yourself a great agent, sign a buyer's agreement, and they're going to hook you up with the best searches possible, try to find you a place. So, but I feel like the consumer experience is going to get worse before it gets better because now you go on to Zillow and you're trying to find this house and maybe it's not there now because
I don't know. Our consumers are pretty like, what do you call it? Like, investigative.
Sure.
A lot of them will find things that don't even.
Are you going to go? Are they going to go knock on Compass's door and say, "Let me look at that book"?
There's
where's that book?
A few Karens out there, but mostly no. That's our job.
I just don't know what that's going to turn into. So is Compass going to have a book? Is Howard Hanna going to have a book? And I'm not trying to pick on anybody or any brokerages. Everybody can do what they want to do. It's up to them. But just from our standpoint, we live in this world. This is the world we swim in, and I don't know where we're going to go find all this stuff. I don't know. I don't know where we're going to get the information. So I feel like I'm not going to do a great job for my client possibly if I've got to go look on 43 websites to see what all the listings are now.
Because they're all different. And especially if you got a client looking in 10 different areas that are not intertwined or intermingled.
Right.
Man, good times.
So I don't know. There's a lot. I'm just mad about everything today, I guess. And so the commissions are a mess. Where you're finding the information is just a hot mess. So there's a lot more to come with that. And I'll quit griping about it then too. Last thing, and I'll quit. Sierra, do you want to sell 7,000 homes in a year?
I don't know if I
for a whopping $4 billion. So this guy, Caballero, I don't know how to say his name, in Texas, has set the world record for selling 7,722 homes in 1 year.
So, is that a team or?
I was going to say he obviously has some folks on his side that are doing the dirty work.
So Brian and I talked about this yesterday then too. So he is the only licensed agent, but he has 25 people working for him that do a lot of the work. Then
you pull the sign, you take the photos, you do the texting.
He works almost exclusively with builders, and then we did the math. It was like, okay, if I'm going to work around the clock, 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. It was 2.1 homes an hour, 10 hours a day, 365 days a year. So even on Christmas, he's selling for 10 hours, 2.1 homes a day.
We've been all working on Christmas before.
Right.
Mother's Day, terrible. Showed a couple houses, might have sold some.
So I don't know how he does it. The part of it was I think he charges a flat rate to new builders, and obviously he says he sees himself more as a tech company than a real estate company. He must have just an amazing platform built out to handle all these new listings and things like that. But
having 22 people work for you, you could definitely get some stuff done for sure.
So if you want to know who the world record holder is, it's this gentleman right here selling almost 8,000 homes in a year for $4 billion. So
let's go.
You got some goals.
Sounds
Think we can hit that next year?
Oh, I know we can hit it. Need a couple more Terras.
Right. Yeah. Okay, I talked a lot today. I'm sorry. Anybody got anything else? How's your day going?
What's for lunch?
What's for lunch? It's that time.
Yep.
Any more accents for the day?
Now y'all have to come back next week to find out if there's another one.
Yep, perfect. Love it.
All right.
We'll end on that. So that's 36 in the bag. Come on back, 37, and we'll see you then. Thanks.